Welcome, everybody. Today, we're joined by 8 voters from the key battleground states of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, all undecided voters. And just to be clear, raise your hand if you voted for Joe Biden in 2020. Raise your hand if you voted for Joe Biden in 2020. That's Kim, Katie, and Omar. And raise your hand if you voted for Donald Trump in 2020. So 3 of you voted for Trump and 3 of you voted for Biden. Raise your hand if you consider yourself an undecided voter in this election, this presidential election. Raise your hand if you consider yourself an undecided voter. And raise your hand if you're unhappy with the choices for president this year. Raise your hand if you're unhappy. All right. So that's everybody. Okay. How do you feel about the choices for president this year? As you think about what's on offer, how do you feel about the choices? Gigi, how do you feel?
Not great.
Great.
Totally
I was going to say the same thing. I haven't felt good for several elections. You know, it's been a while. It feels really unfortunate that we, every 4 years, I feel like finding ourselves in the same situation where I feel like I'm picking the least worst choice. This year, I am a little bit more interested in the fact that we have someone like Robert F. Kennedy. He has me interested in the different things that he's saying and putting out there. So unlike the last election where I was really I don't want either, I'm okay, maybe let's see what's on the table with this other character.
We'll talk about Bobby Kennedy in a little bit, but other folks, just in general, how are you feeling about the choices? What words would you use to describe them?
I just feel like we've seen this timeline before. And going back to what Gigi said, it's been picking the lesser of two evils, resulting in evil for, I don't know how many iterations now, and it's just getting old.
Yeah.
It just feels like they haven't earned the vote,
Mm-hmm.
No, you got to pick. I think it says a lot about our country not having good options. I think that's, as a country, we should be embarrassed that this is the best 2 that we can put up to choose from.
We should have more options, more variety to choose from, not just the same 2 sides.
Mm-hmm. I wish there was 2 completely different guys out here to choose from. Really do.
What traits are missing from the candidates that are being available? What would you like to see different in some other type of candidate?
Well, first of all the back and forth and commotion with each other that they're portraying to everybody, I would like to see just a couple of reports of one of them, just all about what's going on with the world, with our different countries instead of what they want, and all the fighting it makes you not want to even pay attention. I'm pretty much lost right now.
So a candidate who talks more about what you care about. Go ahead, Omar.
I was just going to say they're definitely touching on, the party, high, key points. Each party has their key points, but I feel like just compassion, morality, integrity, that's those are missing from both sides. And there's really I don't see any other way around it. I see hypocrisy and I see self-service out of all candidates.
Yeah, integrity
Hypocrisy and self-service are 2 big words that I would agree with, is what I see that I wish would not be present.
Integrity, I think, is the big thing that's missing. There was a time when most of the candidates and presidents were military men, and they understood stuff like that, like honor, integrity, service, these things. And we haven't had that in decades.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Virginia?
Yeah, I was just going to say respect. Neither one respects each other. And respect, I remember even as a kid, you respected the president. You respected who was in office. Now it's just a bunch of bashing each other, and it's not cool.
It's not just respect for each other, it's respect for the people as well. On both sides,
You're right.
How many people feel disenfranchised by these 2 folks?
Yeah, I think we live in a real accountability vacuum too, as far as politics goes, especially at the highest levels. It seems that the sole purpose to be in power is to not get in trouble often, and people fight to have that position.
I want to go around and ask you all one or 2 words as you think about between now and November, watching the candidates, watching the campaign. What's 1 or 2 words about how you feel thinking about that? 1 or 2 words to describe how you feel thinking about the rest of this political year. Let's start with you, Virginia.
I just have so much anxiety about the whole thing.
Okay. Okay, anxiety is a great word. 1 or 2 words. That's all I need from you on this round. Sean,
Embarrassed.
embarrassed. Okay, Tanisha,
Um, just confused about which way to
confused.
go.
Okay, Katie, 1 or 2 words about how you feel about this presidential year.
Confused.
Okay, Nathan.
Not hopeful.
Okay, Gigi,
Frustrated.
frustrated. Okay, Omar.
I'll say disappointed and optimistic.
Okay, and Kim.
Ashamed and confused.
Ashamed and confused. Okay, I want to talk about President Biden. He's standing for re-election, and I want to start in terms of thinking about your positive thoughts about President Biden. Gigi, I'll start with you. What's the best argument for giving President Biden another term that you see?
I know his stance. I agree with his stance on abortion. I mean, for me, that's probably the only positive I have right now, and that's a big issue.
What other people think? What do you see as the best argument for another term for President Biden?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's the only positive thing I've got going for him.
He definitely like shows more care towards disenfranchised people. Like he's not one of the hey, you're on your own kind of people. And I personally agree with like we should be supporting people who need support, and it should be kind of a collective good sort of thing. And I think like he's not a socialist, but Biden definitely represents that far more than Trump does, and that's the case I would say.
Other people who haven't talked. What's the best case you can make for another term for the president?
I like what he did with loan forgiveness for college students and with their debt from loans for college. I think that was something positive he was trying to do, and that was something I liked about him.
I think he's doing well with the carbon credits and the environmental issues.
I think he represents something of a safe status quo choice. If that's a good thing or not, I'm not really certain.
Okay. Nathan, I'm going to stay with you and switch up the question. What's your biggest reservation about giving another term to President Biden? What's your single biggest reservation?
Yeah, I think he's been absolutely disastrous for the economy.
I agree.
Yeah. Raise your hand if you agree. Raise your hand if you agree with Nathan that President Biden's performance in the economy is your biggest reservation.
Oh,
okay.
Well,
biggest.
A big one.
We can make.
I put my hand out when it's biggest.
One.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a big one, but not necessarily the biggest one for a lot of you.
No.
Tanisha, what's your biggest reservation about another term for President Biden?
I don't know. It's just seeing him speak and some of his mistakes and errors. I feel I'm not sure if he should continue or he should retire. So I'm just kind of on the line about that. And just seeing the different things that he was supposed to do and then him making mistakes or errors. So I'm a little bit on the fence about that.
I think to Tanisha's point, I don't think the health thing it's a big issue because I just, you want to have someone in there for 4 years. So you're voting that person in. You're not necessarily wanting to vote in the vice president. And from what we've seen of his health just in this term, it's concerning to be putting him up for election again, just on that alone.
Yep.
Raise your hand if you have doubts about whether President Biden would finish his term. Raise your hand if you have doubts about if he's reelected, whether he'd finish his term. All right, so just all right, keep them up just because we got some late votes here. All right, so all but 2 of you do. All but 2 of you have some doubts about that. And of the 6 of you who said you have some doubts, is that a reason you might not vote for him? Is that a consideration?
Yeah, most definitely.
It's a possibility, but it's not like the main thing.
I think one of the things we don't necessarily even know for certain is who his VP will be. And I think that uncertainty is out there. I think Harris has been tremendously unpopular with the vast majority of voters, and I think there may be a last minute switch, and I think that may be holding people back from going all in on Biden.
I want to ask you now about President Biden versus President Trump on this question, and we'll start with show of hands, and then we'll talk about it. Whose policies do you think would be better for your family, personal finances, your family's personal finances going forward? Whose policies? Raise your hand if you think President Trump's policies on the economy would be better for your family personally. Raise your hand. All right, so that is everybody. Okay, let's talk about that. President Biden argues that his economic record has been very good. said President Trump's was not as good. What are you keying off of, Sean? Since you had the best smile, and Virginia the second best smile. What are you keying off of to say President Trump's economic policies would be better for you?
My past performance of my 401k. I mean, I have hard data of my finances that I can just look at and say, well, that's. I mean, now I know it was post 2020 and everything kind of flipped around, but you know, you can't blame everything on 2020 for forever. You know.
Okay, Virginia, why are you smiling at the question?
I mean, yeah, businesses just seem to be booming. I mean, we have areas here in Pennsylvania where it's just at a standstill right now. Like things are supposed to be being built and the interest rates are just way too high for people to invest and start moving around.
And Virginia, just staying with you because Pennsylvania is near and dear to Joe Biden's heart. Are there Biden policies that you would blame for the problem? And if so, what are they? Or Trump policies you would credit?
I'm just still looking at the interest rate. You know, the interest rate is so high right now, and I know they're trying to cut the inflation down. But like, if the interest rate is not low, nobody is building. No businesses are really coming to Pennsylvania right now to keep us moving forward. It's just kind of stagnant right now. Nothing seems to be happening.
Does anybody have a story to share about your family's personal finances since Joe Biden's been in the White House, where you'd say, because of Joe Biden, like that's been a problem for my family? Does anybody have a story that they'd like to share about that? Virginia, go ahead.
We really want to add on an addition to our house, but I mean, there is no way we can afford to do that. We're a family of 6, and I really need to have a new bedroom and a bath on, and not the way the interest rates are right now. They're just way too high.
But you attribute that to Joe Biden's policies?
I do, because if the interest rate was lower when Trump was in, I would be able to do more. Definitely be able to do more.
The prices of everything is so high now. The price of food, the price of living, even if you're trying to buy a house, because I'm trying to become a first-time home buyer, the prices are so high right now. It's just hard.
You can't do anything. You just have to rent.
Right. Yeah.
Is there anything Joe Biden could do or say between now and the time you vote that would make you feel differently about feeling that his policies would not be as good for your family on the economy? Or are you pretty much decided that Trump's policies would be better for the economy?
I mean, I feel like he doesn't even take accountability for at all with what's going on in the economy. Not even accountability. Like, he's in denial that it's happening. Like, his team is like, no, there's the inflation isn't that bad. The markup on groceries and just everyday goods, it's not that bad. And you're like, oh, but my grocery bill has gone up like at least $150 a week in the last 2 years.
Agree.
We're a family with 2 adults and 1 baby. Like, that's crazy.
And at this point, it's almost a little bit. It's too late. I mean, you're talking 3.5 years into his term, and now you're going to do something about it. You know, for what? So you get reelected, and then everything goes right back to the way it was before. Yeah, no.
The point is, Biden needs to hear the people, because when he's talking about the economy doing stellar, he's talking about the stock market. He's not looking at homelessness or joblessness. He's not, to Gigi's point, thinking about how much it costs to go to the grocery store. And he's gaslighting literally everyone in the process. It's definitely a lot that he could be doing better there.
Okay. And Omar, you voted for Joe Biden last time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you now about a different issue and a comparison between President Biden and President Trump, which is, who do you think in office, both in terms of their presidencies and the next presidency, who would keep America safer? Who would do a better job of keeping America safe? Raise your hand if you think President Biden would do a better job of keeping America safe. President Biden. Omar. Okay. And hand down, Omar. And raise your hand if you think President Trump would do a better job of keeping us safe. All right. So that's everybody else except Kim. You think it's a tie?
Yeah.
Okay. Tanisha, explain why you think President Trump would do a better job of keeping America safe around the world.
Well, because he's all for America. I know people may have their opinions about him, but he's all for, building America, making America better, helping businesses. He's a businessman. He was a businessman before he became president. So he knows how to make more money and build up our country. So I'm kind of on the fence about him, but as far as his business aspect, I think that will help to keep us safer.
I would hear from others of you who think President Trump's policies would keep America safer. Tell me why.
I would say that. Go ahead, Gigi.
First Nathan and then Gigi. No, Nathan,
Okay,
you go and then
sure.
Gigi.
I think Trump, but only marginally so, because he projects strength, and Biden, I think, just projects weakness. I think to my liking, they're both far too pro-war. I would like to see the U.S. out of a lot of these foreign entanglements. Eisenhower warned us about this long ago, and here we are walking right into it all over again. But yeah, I think Trump, just because he projects a little more strength than Biden.
I mean, I agree with part of what you're saying, Nathan, and President Trump definitely projects a stronger presence, I believe, as well. And I think when he was, our president, that came across as some people thinking that put us in danger because he was more aggressive, more, that's how it was portrayed. But look at the conflicts that we are in now and have been brought into while Biden has been in power. So I also just feel like part of this too, and I'm sure this is going to be another topic we're going into, is immigration. For me, I think the open borders leads our country to be very unsafe. And that's my biggest concern with the safety of our country.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. I don't want to prejudge it, but raise your hand if you think President Trump would be better than President Biden at securing the Mexican border. Raise your hand if you think President Trump would do a better job. All right, so that's everyone but Omar. Okay, we'll come back to immigration in a moment, but I want to ask you another question of comparison between them. Think about this one. Between President Biden and President Trump, who do you think better understands the daily challenges faced by people like you? Okay, who do you think better understands the daily challenges faced by people like you? Raise your hand if you think President Trump better understands the daily challenges. All right, surprisingly, Omar says yes to that one, and Gigi. And raise your hand if you think President Biden better understands your daily challenges.
Yes.
So I some
feel
of you
like
don't
neither of them really do.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So if I offered you a tie or that neither of them really does, who would vote for that? Raise your hand.
Neither.
Oh,
Either. Yeah.
All right, neither one. All right, Katie.
I mean, that's most politicians. I feel like.
I think Trump is better to appealing.
Okay. What if I asked you to compare them to, say, Barack Obama? Would you say that he understood better?
Yes.
Omar says yes. Okay.
A little bit.
All right.
I'd say slightly.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll come back. I wanted to ask you a little bit about President Trump, because I'm surprised on one level that, given what the group in general, what you said about President Biden, you don't really think he understands people like you. You think he's been bad on the economy. You don't think he'd do as good a job at controlling the southern border as President Trump. You don't think he'd keep the world as safe, not all of you, but most of you. And yet you're not all voting for Donald Trump. So let's start with Virginia. Virginia, what is it that gives you reservations about Donald Trump?
I just think Donald Trump is mean. He's a bully, and I think his policies are solid. I pretty much agree with most of them. I just don't like him as a leader.
Okay. Other folks, tell me what reservation, what's your primary reservation, Sean, about Donald Trump?
I don't think he does a lot to try to bring groups together. And from when he ran the last time, our country became so divided. And I don't know if it's anything particular about what he said or did, but our country really picked sides on this, and it just got out.
I feel like people forget about that, Sean. That's such a good point. It's like Trump is so volatile, and not only internal strife and conflict, but I don't feel comfortable with him calling someone with nukes rocket man. It's like I don't want him inflaming country. I thought it was funny too, but maybe Kim Jong didn't.
I know.
So I've heard people say he's mean and have reservations about the sort of
that
style.
Doesn't bother me, but I just think that there could be more done for the people in terms of that, where he just said, well, I don't know. I don't really know how that works. Is it really, did he just reveal how the human heart is throughout the country anyway? Or did he cause it? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the problem.
And I think that
so much behind social media. I mean, it's like, you just get your fingers off the phone.
Yeah, he's definitely
There's pros and cons to social media.
It's easy to hide behind that screen, you know.
It's a situation that went on at the Capitol for me that got really out of control. It makes you wonder, well, if he's back in there, what could, anything could happen now. It's really a scary thing.
I feel like if Trump just shut his mouth, like, and just did his policy and his work, I would say, yes, please come back. But if he just learns to keep his mouth closed, don't make comments about people that he might not necessarily like that much, and just be a strong leader and do his job.
I think that I keep hearing everybody say, and I agree to, and everybody's just kind of saying it a different way. It's like, yes, he's mean or whatever, but it's that he's divisive, period. The divisiveness that he causes in the country is like the big problem. His policies could be great, but that almost undermines that all, the way that it caused the divide and the craziness within our country.
He's actually told a number of different groups, a number of different people in different places that his position differs based on his audience. And I mean, as a politician, that's a great skill to have, but it just makes him so untrustworthy to anybody who's paying attention that, he has more camps than he has feet, and he just shuffles around and exists where he needs to in order to please the most people in that moment. And that just seems entirely disingenuous. It is, Omar.
It is, Omar. Not like in immediate state. I get what you're saying with respect to Trump, but in general, politicians are as wishy-washy as.
And I hear people who are big Trump supporters basically say that that's like one of the things they like that he's so transparent about his the way he is. That's what you'll hear people say.
Kim raised January 6th, and obviously that's one of the areas where President Trump is now facing some criminal indictments. I want to talk a little bit about whether the indictments and any possible convictions could impact how you decide to vote in the end, or whether you decide to vote. Sean, let's start with you. How do you feel about the indictments and any possible conviction?
I just think they're a political farce. If this was such a big deal, we have a policy here in America, a right to a speedy trial. Why wasn't this brought up in 2020 or 2021? Now it just shows that they're just trying to railroad them to try to get them off the ballot. It's really just, come on.
Okay. How do other people feel compared to what Sean said?
I mean,
it's
agree with
in line with that, but it just feels like the DOJ at this point is completely abusing the justice system. And don't get me wrong, there are some things that I agree, he probably, I don't have facts, but he probably should be charged for. He probably was guilty of some of that. But it's entirely being weaponized, and it doesn't seem fair at all, and it feels like just a big brother tactic to keep dissenters down. And even if I don't agree with Trump, I disagree with that more.
Does anyone feel differently about the prosecutions from Sean and Omar, and I gather from the head nodding Virginia? Does anyone think these prosecutions are legitimate, important? Anybody?
I think some of them are important. I also feel like if they have the proof, then why is it being dragged out so far? If it was any of us, and if it was any of us, they'd handle it.
Let me ask you if you agree with this statement that the prosecutions, again, there are 4 of them, but these prosecutions, in terms of how they've been dragged out, was politically motivated by the part of the prosecutors. Raise your hand if you agree with that. That the prosecution timing has been politically motivated. All right, so everybody but Kim. Kim, you're not. You don't think so?
I don't understand.
Okay, but the rest of you think the timing of it. Let me ask you
most
this.
Definitely, the timing. Yeah,
timing's dragged out. All right, so all of you think that. Tanisha, if Donald Trump were convicted, and maybe you'd feel differently depending on which charges he was convicted of, but he felt convicted, would that make you feel less likely to vote for him, or no?
I think it would depend on the charges, and because it was dragged out for so long, it depends on the charges.
Can anyone think of any of the charges he's facing? And again, it's a lot. You've got busy lives. Maybe you're not following it super closely. But can anyone think of any of the charges that you think is particularly serious, where your sense is he is guilty from what you've heard, and you think if he is convicted that it's a serious disqualification? Can anyone name anything that he's charged with? You feel that way about?
I heard treason being kicked around in the beginning. I don't know if that was ever an official charge. Because back in the day, we would just take them out and hang them or shoot them, right?
I'm not sure of the word, but definitely one is incitement of dissent. It's incitement of something, but it's specific to overruling the current administration, which I mean is a bit of a stretch, but definitely something important. I think another is tax tax fraud, something like that. Like he owes the IRS a lot of money. I'm not 100% though.
I don't think tax fraud has any bearing on his ability to lead the country. I mean,
it's a moral thing.
Well, yeah, it's a moral thing, but yet, you can go up and down the street, and I bet you 9 out of 10 of your neighbors has lied somewhere along the line on their taxes. I mean,
yeah, and he was very transparent about that when he ran Hillary. He said he's just using the laws the way they are. They're like, if you don't like it, change the laws. He's like, but I know you won't.
We've talked a little bit about politicians and ethics, and particularly Trump and Biden. Just a show of hands, if you were rating them in terms of honesty, truthfulness, and character. I'm going to ask you about Trump, Biden, and no difference. Who's got, in your view, better character, morality, honesty? Raise your hand if you think Donald Trump has better moral character than Joe Biden. Raise your hand. Trump. Okay, raise your hand. Joe Biden. You think he has better character? All right, so Katie's halfway. And raise your hand if you think there's really no difference between them.
Very little.
It'd be interesting if we separated those three. But yeah.
Okay, so all right. I want to ask you about other potential candidates and actual candidates. Gigi mentioned Bobby Kennedy before. What do people think about him? Gigi, you already weighed in. So what do other folks think about Bobby Kennedy? Is he someone you might consider voting for? What do you know about him? What do you like about him? What don't you like about him? Omar, you go.
He's a consideration. Anyone's a consideration, frankly, at this point. He seems to have a decent head on his shoulders. He comes from a family that has historically done good for the nation. But I don't give him credit just because he's a Kennedy. Like, he has to, again, earn the vote. And I hear a lot of his points. Like, I think he had just had a recent 10-minute public some political advertisement, and he was saying a lot of really relevant things about how we have chronic illnesses off the charts, and how there's just high violence rates and high debt rates, and he's talking about real American problems. Whether he'll do anything about that, he gets to talk about whatever he wants, but he hasn't really proved himself. So it's interesting.
So Omar, would you consider voting for him at this point? Is it on the table for you?
I mean, if he changed his foreign policy stance towards the conflict in Israel, I might.
Okay.
Not right now.
Anyone else? Tell me what you've heard about him, what you think about him, besides Gigi and Omar.
I mean,
I don't really about him.
Go ahead, Virginia.
I don't really know too much about him except for his, he's a Kennedy. I'm assuming a Democrat. My sticking point, and it's going to be opposite of Gigi and Katie, is abortion. I'm for life, and if he's for abortion, that's going to be a sticking point for me. But I would like to hear more about what he stands for and about his policies.
Okay. Other people, what do you know about him? What do you like about him or not like? Go ahead, Nate.
He's pretty hard line on the environment, and I know some people may like that and some may not. To me, it seems like his policies are so strict that I think it's going to further impair business. It's going to raise costs. It's going to create an additional regulatory layer that is going to hurt us all, in my personal opinion. I haven't really heard a whole lot else about him. I don't know. I think he's a non-starter for me, but I would like to see him in the race, not because I think he's going to be Ralph Nader 2.0, but because I think that it's good to have additional voices out there. I just see too many policies that I think are going to be a continuation of Biden, quite frankly. In economically speaking, I think that he's looking for a blank check from the taxpayer in order to do a lot of these pet projects as far as the environment goes, and I just don't see that as being a worthwhile.
I agree. That's a good point.
If Bobby Kennedy's on the ballot in your state, and it appears that he's doing well enough in the polls to win, raise your hand if you possibly might vote for him based on what you know. Possibly might vote for him if you were on the ballot in your state. Yeah. Raise them up, keep them up, because we got some indecisiveness. All right, so 5-ish, 6-ish. Okay. Who else can name anybody else who might be running or is running for president?
Cornel West, Jill Stein, let's go.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Omar's got it down. What do folks think about those options? Anybody attracted to that kind of option?
I don't know that America is ready for a female president yet.
I disagree.
I thought about it, but
I disagree about
that.
I mean, Hillary was a great option. I mean, she was somebody who
Hillary was not a great option.
I don't agree with Hillary Clinton, but that anything's possible.
Why did you
just thinking in general
with a lady being president?
I don't
I
have a
can't
problem
see
with a
it.
lady being president. I think that anything's possible. I just didn't agree with Hillary Clinton option. But
Oh, you said Hillary. Oh,
Okay.
With
Just
me,
raise your
Sean.
hand if you think voting for someone besides Trump or Biden is basically a waste of the vote. Raise your hand if you think that's a wasted vote. Anybody think
What do
that?
you mean by waste?
that,
Well,
they're
you
not going
just
to
you
pay
define
attention
it.
to it
You define
anyway.
it.
I
Okay.
feel
All
like
right.
they make us like you're made to feel that way, which is the
Yes,
problem. It's
most
the problem. And
definitely.
that's why people will not vote a lot of times for the
And
other
that's going
candidate
to be the
because
problem.
Right.
I
Okay.
used to live in Montana, and like the election was already done by the time I voted, basically. Like it was a bummer, so that's why I feel, that it's kind of a wasted.
I'm gonna have to disagree. I lived in Texas, and I felt very much the same way many of the years that I lived there. But because it's a foregone conclusion, I actually felt like voting for a third party gave me a lot of power and agency because it was a vote of disapproval for the status quo.
That's a good way to think of it.
Thank you for saying that.
I want to come back.
Yeah.
I want to come back to a couple issues here, and we're getting close to the end, and just want to make sure I type some loose ends. A couple issues have come up. First, a few of you mentioned abortion. Abortion rights is an important issue to you. I'm wondering again how important it is to you, and whether it could be decisive for you in the end in terms of how you vote. Raise your hand if abortion is one of the top issues for you in this election. Raise your hand if it's one of the top issues. All right. So four of you. Let's start with Virginia. You said you supported pro-life. So could Joe Biden win your vote, even though he supports abortion rights?
That's the hard thing. That is the struggle for me. Like I think Joe Biden is a little more compassionate maybe than Trump, but then at the same time, I don't feel that as a country we should say it's okay to murder babies. I have a really strong I just feel really bad even allowing. So because of my beliefs, yeah.
Okay, and Gigi, you have the opposite point of view regarding abortion and the law. So could you see yourself voting for Donald Trump, who's responsible for overturning Roe versus Wade?
I mean, like I could. It's an important issue for me, but it's not like it's not just black and white as like I'm pro-life or not pro-life. Like I think there's limits. I think that abortion can be used inappropriately. And I think that being flat out, like letting states just totally ban it without there being like proper exceptions for medical incest, rape, that is dangerous. I think it's a really hard issue for me. It's hard for me to say that this is one of the biggest hangups for me, I would say, in voting.
For me, it's more about women's rights and not about whether I'm pro-life or it's about giving women the opportunity to make that decision. And it goes back to what Gigi said. There's so many extended circumstances that haven't been taken into consideration. It's not just black and white. You can't just say no, we're not going to do it, and then a mother's life is at risk because of a pregnancy, and you're not going to allow that to that's where I struggle with it. It's not black and white.
And I think women's rights and just medical rights too, like they're both really important. Like flat out, just having your own medical rights, your own like authority over your body, and not having the state or the government tell you what you can and can't do with your body. Period.
Okay, Kim.
I look at it in a lot of different ways, but biblically, we're not supposed to, kill. So that's my strongness and not wanting it to, go on. But also, as Gigi said, if it's some incest or someone got raped, that's a hard thing for certain people to be able to handle. So, I'm like, there should be limits, but at the same time, you got a lot of young people out here just popping babies and killing them and killing them and killing them. And that's sad,
And Nate, thank you, Kim. Nathan.
I think Gigi touched on it a little bit, but I think the idea that the government being the ultimate arbiter of our healthcare and our bodies is terrifying. I mean, they do such a poor job of everything else. I do not want the government having say over my body, my wife's body, or any of your bodies. And it's just terrifying to think that we're going to go down this road of certain allowances, but then the government is deciding what those allowances are, and I'm deeply concerned with how involved they're going to get into vetting those reasons for each individual. I think that's really terrifying to think about.
Okay, I want to ask you one more question about immigration. You all said before that you thought President Biden's record on the economy, you pretty much settled on it. And if he did anything different, you'd attribute it to the election year. Do you feel that way about immigration? Or if he made some changes in his immigration policy now, do you think that could win back some of your confidence in him to handle the issue?
I don't know how I feel about that, because even with the statement of the governor, and encouraging us to open up our homes to immigrants, but we have a large percentage of homeless people who are still homeless, and they're giving homes to immigrants. I'm not saying that they don't need a space, but we have homeless people who are already here, who need assistance, who need funding, and they're giving away free things to immigrants and not helping the homeless.
Don't be the devil's advocate here, but a lot of those homeless people, I still have property in California, and a lot of those homeless people do not want to be housed because they don't want to follow the rules. So, I mean, I feel for anybody, if they're given the opportunity as a homeless person, to get the same benefits that we're offering, these people coming in across the borders, then great. But I can't weigh, homelessness against immigration, because to me, they're completely separate.
That's a good point, Katie. I think that the thing with immigration is they both have pretty strong, we want to mitigate foreign immigration, especially through the southern border. It's become a hot button issue, and Biden and Trump, frankly, in my opinion, take very similar stances with regards to that. They were both putting kids in cages back on the southern border. It's like, how different are they? At the end of the day, what I want to see is someone who really addresses the speed to get from kind of first step of legal immigration status to a legal American citizen, or at least you're here on some visa or whatever while you go through the process. But they need to have a better vetting system on a quicker time frame to kind of tackle legal immigration and make it more feasible. And at the same time, we got to keep the people who shouldn't be here out, and that's it's just something.
I think I agree with 100% correct on that. It needs to be a faster process, and there needs to be restrictions. We do want to let people in. We do want to help people as a country, but you can't just let anybody walk through.
I think that there's a lot of specters being raised about just the danger of immigration. We're a country of immigrants. Some of us don't have to go too far back. And our families were coming here, and personally, I have someone in my family who just got here, only a handful of years ago, and it's just very, very concerning to see people who are so upset with the idea that immigration is what's ruining this country. It's actually, in my opinion, what is making this country great. The diversity of opinion and experience and all of that coming together is what made America great in the first place, and it's what will make America great again.
Great, Janisha?
I agree with that. It's just there needs to be boundaries. You can't just have open borders. I think that's just really the difference. I 100% agree with that, Nate.
I just want to say I don't have a problem with immigration. I think what someone was saying earlier about it being legal immigration, I think I'm okay with that, as long as they're going through all the proper procedures and everything to become a citizen. I think that's fine. I think it should be open. I just have an issue with the illegal immigration, and then try to get the citizens to open up their homes and giving them free resources when they haven't went through the proper resources to become legal. That's the issue I have, because you do have to be careful about who you let in. There's a lot of human trafficking, especially with children and women, and you really want to be careful to keep the country safe.
I think the legal system is broken on purpose, though. I think that it's set up to be difficult. It's set up to be expensive. It's a source of revenue for the government, and they know that there's a never-ending stream of people who would want to come here legally. They know there's a never-ending stream of people who will pay to come here legally. and they are just keeping the system broken on purpose. And there is no will on Republicans or Democrats side to fix it, because it's actually doing what they want it to do, which is unfortunate.
I agree.
I want to go around and ask you all for one sentence. If you were asked by President Biden, he called you up and said, Virginia, I really want to win your vote. What do I need to do to win your vote? I want to know what you would say to President Biden. What's the thing he could do to win your vote, Virginia?
It would be to be pro-life.
Okay. Sean, what would you tell President Biden he needs to do to win your vote?
To be a better leader.
Okay. Nathan?
Stop spending money.
Okay. Gigi?
That's the big one.
Stop spending money. Take accountability for the economy.
Omar?
Stop giving Israel carte blanche to bomb my family.
Okay. Kim?
Just take notes. Start taking notes and keep up with what's going on. Pay attention to what's really going on.
Okay. Katie, what would you tell President Biden how he could win your vote?
Be present.
Okay. Tanisha?
Be more informed about what's going on. Maybe have some better people around now so he can become a better leader.
Same question about President Trump. Gigi, I'll start with you. What would you tell President Trump? Said, Gigi, I really want to win your vote. What can I do? What would you tell him?
Keep your mouth shut. Be compassionate. Okay. Be like a little empathetic, compassionate.
Okay. Omar?
I was thinking something similar. Have a heart, It's like be more decent.
Okay. Okay. Kim?
Get your neck back.
Get your neck back?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's cruel.
When you're doing too much and you're not caring, just sit back, because you got a lot of great points.
Just because you think it doesn't mean you should say it.
Right.
Okay, Nathan?
Sit your neck back.
Nathan?
I think get in touch with the real American people. I don't believe you.
Tanisha, what would you tell President?
Hire a better PR team so he can learn how to communicate better with everyone to bring the country together, not divide it.
There you go.
Sean?
Everything that comes into your head doesn't have to come out of your mouth.
Okay. And Virginia?
Be kind and promote peace.
Yes.
Very grateful to all of you for making time and for being so generous with your points of view. You are, as I say, VIVs, very important voters because of where you live and how thoughtful you are. And thank you all. Have a great evening and very grateful.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Appreciate the time, everyone.